G'day and welcome to another episode of Tomo's Tune-Ups. On this episode, I'm going to show you how to install a long-range fuel tank on your classic Mini. First step, we're going to jack up the car. Make sure you also use jack stands. Okay, so now that the vehicle's jacked up, we can drain the fuel tank. Now we just have to wait for it to stop draining. Now make sure as well, while it's draining, you do it in a well-ventilated area. As you can see above me, I've got the garage door wide open and I might even put the fan on as well. Okay, so now that the fuel tank's drained, we can then remove the old tank. We're just gonna go and open up the boot. And then we're going to come in here and we're going to loosen off the strap and then take the old tank out. So we're just going to remove the spare tyre. Once the spare tyre's out, we're then going to loosen off the strap down here. So we're going to need a 1/2-inch spanner and a socket. So I'm going to get a socket at the top here and then we're going to put the spanner down below and use a rattle gun to remove the bolt. Before we do that, we're just going to disconnect the fuel gauge sender and move the wiring off to the side. Also, there's a breather pipe for the fuel tank. We're just going to have to remove that from the top. Alright, once the strap has been loosened off, you can then remove the nut from the underside and then the bolt from the top. Last thing we need to do before we remove the fuel tank is to remove the cap. Once it's off, we can then remove the tank. So give it a bit of a wiggle and she'll come straight out. Make sure you guide the fuel pipe as well out through the back of the chassis. Okay, and then the fuel tank's out. So before we start the installation of the new tank, we're just going to get the vacuum cleaner and give it a quick clean. Before we install the new tank, this ring is going to go between the filler neck and the body. So it's going to sit right up in here on the new tank. That's just going to help to prevent it bouncing around and creating any vibrations. So grab the new tank, slide it straight on there, and then we can install the new tank. Make sure the strap goes on the side of the tank where the indicator is, and then slide the fuel tank in, line it up with the filler neck hole. Once she's in position, tighten the bolt, then we can install the new fuel tank sender. Make sure you start the nut by hand, that secures the tank to the body. Once you're happy it's in position, tighten up the nut. Okay, so now that the fuel tank is secure in the housing, we are now going to install the new sender unit. So we grab our sender and we grab the new O-ring. So the O-ring is going to sit directly around here and that's what's going to seal the sender unit to the tank. So we slide the sender in, nice and easy. So the terminals are going to be facing downwards. Then just nice and gently slide it straight in there just like that. Grab a new locking ring, that'll sit on there just like that, and then we can rotate it around to lock it in position. Once you're happy with the locking ring being tight, you can now reinstall the wiring. Now because the tank is bigger than the original one, we need to extend the wiring for the tank. Make sure as well that you make note of which end the connectors go on. Next step is to reconnect the fuel pipe from the tank to the fuel filter. Once it's on there, make sure you tighten the clamp. Next step is to reinstall the fuel filter pipe from the tank. Make sure you also tighten this hose clamp. Now that we've reinstalled all the pipes and we've tightened all the clamps, we can now reinstall the breather pipe that goes from the fuel tank all the way to the inlet manifold, and then we can fill it with fuel, test it for leaks, and then we're done. Okay, so I've fitted temporarily just a small patch harness in here between the sender wiring and the original wiring of the vehicle. I've tested the fuel gauge and made sure that it works. The last thing left to do is to refit the fuel cap. So that's it, guys. That's how you install a long-range fuel tank on your classic Mini. Don't forget to ensure that you tighten all the fuel clamps, and once you fill it with fuel, or if you're in the States, gasoline, you make sure that there's no fuel leaks whatsoever. If there is, make sure you rectify it as soon as possible. Don't forget to repack your boot full of stuff if you have stuff in it, and also reinstall the spare tyre. Make sure you check your spare tyre pressure whilst you got it out. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay COVID safe, and we'll see you next time on an episode of Tomo's Tune-Ups, all things DIY and mechanical.